Hey there everyone, Power here, and welcome back. Today we're going to be taking a short look at Star Wars Battlefront. So, Battlefront came out on Tuesday, and I think it turned out to be what most of us expected, and as such this video is going to be fairly easy. Battlefront is an extremely strongly themed shooter that is designed to appeal to as large or as broad of a demographic as is possible. And that's good and bad. It all really depends on what it is you want. So, thematically, Battlefront knocks it out of the park like few games before ever have. In terms of graphics and what you see, it oozes authentic Star Wars, and not just any Star Wars, but the original trilogy Star Wars. Playing this game is like taking the original trilogy and seeing it in some type of crazy IMAX where you're in charge, where you can control it. It really is that well done. Everything from each little individual detail of the visuals, the stormtroopers, how they look, how they're rendered, the rebel troopers, the ATSTs, AT-ATs, X-Wings flying overhead, TIE fighters, the backdrops with Star Destroyers fighting Mon Calamari cruisers. You can see the Death Star on a few levels, the Endor ones obviously. It screams original trilogy Star Wars. And authentic, a real original trilogy Star Wars, not phoned in, not half-assed. About as pure as you can get, in my opinion, as a relatively big Star Wars fan, not a crazy one. And man, it's excellent. It knocks out of the park because of that. However, the rest of the game is kind of average. So what you're really going to get out of this game is really going to be dependent on how far that theme can carry you. There are 9 different game modes, and they're made up of maps that take place on 4 different planets that are canon of the Star Wars universe. You have Endor, Hoth, Tatooine, and Solstice. So basically you have an ice planet, a forest planet, a desert planet, and then a volcanic, or whatever you want to call it, lava planet. Supremacy and Walker Assault are the big game modes. These are the 20v20s. These guys take place on 4 maps apiece. They have 1 map on each planet, and from what I can tell, both play on the exact same map. There may be some very slight changes, like on Walker Assault mode, there might be a little more cover to protect you from the Walker, or maybe a few more weapon pickups to fight the Walker, but they seem to be the exact same map. They are good, quality maps. There's no real complaints here, other than the fact that there's only 4 of them, and the big draw is the big draw of Star Wars Battlefront is large Star Wars battles. Well, there's only 4 of those in the game, which that's kind of a problem. The smaller game modes, you have kind of 4 competitive game modes, I would call them. These have no vehicles in them. They also have no heroes in them. So you have Blast, which is just team deathmatch. You have Cargo, which is a slight variation of Capture the Flag. You have Drop Zone, which is a capture point type mode where the capture point goes away after a certain time and the new one comes in. And you have Droid Assault, where there's 3 capture points and they kind of wander around. There's also then 2 hero-based game modes in Hero Hunt and Heroes vs. Villains. These are either a team of heroes fighting another team of heroes, and heroes versus villains trying to kill off the other team's heroes. And then the Hero Hunt is 5 players trying to kill the hero. Whoever kills the hero becomes the next hero in the rotation. These smaller game modes are a mixture in terms of maps, depending on how big they are. So like the 6v6 ones have like 9 maps of them. Some of the maps are directly sections of the larger Walker Assault map. Like they'll take this part of the Walker Assault map and turn that into a Droid Assault map. But there are also then some handcrafted just for those game mode maps. Like there's 2 additional maps that are on Tatooine, but don't appear in the Tatooine large map. They were just created for these smaller game modes. As such, the smaller game modes do have more map variety, and they're a little more forgiving than the Walker Assault or Supremacy game modes. And if you're counting, that's only 8 game modes. The 9th is Fighter Squadron, which is kind of its own beast. Obviously, it's 20v20 plus bots then on top of that. Fighters only. And there's 1 of them on top of each planet. The map doesn't really matter, though, in Fighter Squadron, as it's mostly just the backdrop, because obviously you're flying. Then there are 11 different primary weapons, though I probably should just call them weapons as you don't have a traditional sidearm or secondary weapon you can switch to. But there are 11 weapons, and then 24 of these star cards. Now the star cards are several different things within this one heading. They're essentially how you set up your loadout or your equipment slot. So some of them are grenades, some of them are kind of side weapons like a scout pistol or a sniper rifle. The bowcaster comes in this category. Then there's some of them that are traits, like a trait that reduces your signature on the radar, or a trait that increases your or decreases your cooldown period. And then there's sort of an ability, which would be like reduces your weapon overheat, so your weapon won't overheat, or makes your weapon do more damage to vehicles. And you take all these different the traits, the weapons, and the skills, and you put them together to make a deck, and you get to choose 3 different ones, and that's your loadout that you take with into battle. There is some cosmetic unlocks. There are a big number of emotes. There's also a big number of helmet or head options that you can unlock. You can't customize these, but there's like, say, 40 different head options, and you can select which head option you want, unlock that with credits, and go that way. So that's the customization side of things. And then I almost forgot about it, but there is a little bit of kind of single player content. It's not even single player content. There's a little bit of versus the AI non-competitive mode in here. So there are 4 survival missions. These are wave-based survival missions. It's you by yourself or with one other person going up against 15 progressively stronger waves of enemies, one on each planet. So 4 different maps, 1 game mode. There is then also a battle mode where there's, again, 4 different maps, 1 on each planet, and you play as either one of the heroes, and you just need to kill enough enemies and collect these cards that drop on the ground, or you can play as a trooper. None of these modes are great. I did enjoy actually going into the missions just to play as the heroes a little bit to get a feel for them, as when you try to play them in the competitive game mode, you can die so quickly that you don't really get a feel for how to play them. It was a good learning experience for that reason alone. It's also a good way to farm some credits to buy some of the items you need in-game. But make no mistake, there is no single-player content here. So when you put it all together, what do you have? Do you have a good buy? Well, like I said at the very beginning, it all depends on how much that Star Wars theme is going to carry. If you're someone that enjoys multiplayer shooters and loves Star Wars, well, you've probably already bought the game, and you should buy the game if you haven't. The theme is really that well done that if you love Star Wars, you're going to like the game. It'll overpower any of the small flaws or averageness with the game. If you're someone that likes shooters, for multiplayer shooters, and likes Star Wars, kind of where I am, it's kind of a flip of the coin. The game is good enough. It's not the best value, but it's not a waste of money either. It's not a terrible game to own at that point. If you're a little bit more lukewarm about Star Wars, I would still say that if you like shooters, it's worth playing, but not right now. Give it 6 months, let them get some of the DLC out to where there's more maps. You'll probably be able to get it on sale. At that point, just to see how well done and polished it is and shiny it is, it's worth playing at that point. If you're someone that doesn't like shooters, don't even bother. Like I said just a moment ago, there's nothing here to make it a single player game. There's some warm-up modes or where you can try out different loadout modes versus the AI, the survival modes, but there's nothing here to justify the purchase if you want a single player game. Finally, before we end, I did want to kind of address some of my own concerns I had coming out of the beta. So I made a video on the beta impressions, and in there I voiced 5 or 6 different concerns I had. And most of those were fixed. So let's see. First of all, the first and the biggest problem was the queue system, trying to join up as a party. This system has been mostly fixed. Now, joining with a party works most of the time. On rare occasion, we will see ourselves being placed on an empty server, and they just never match anybody else up against us, but backing out to the main screen and requeuing does seem to fix that. It's a minor inconvenience, but not a real problem. There was an issue with the spawn system in the beta where the rebels would just spawn out in the open and get wrecked, especially in Walker Assault mode. This seems to again be mostly fixed. They've moved the spawn system. On occasion you will get a bad spawn, but for the most part there's no real complaints here. there was an issue with the aim sensitivity inside the turrets, where it was the same sensitivity as your aircraft, and it just didn't work. This has been fixed. From what I can tell, it is now the same sensitivity as your primary infantry aiming and is completely separate from the aircraft. It works, no real problems. Yeah, there's two small things that might still turn up. Now, I'm not going to call these problems yet, but there's something I'm watching. I want to put another 10-15 hours in before I get there. I'm still not 100% sold on the balance of the Walker Assault mode, mainly around the anti-vehicle weapons. As it is right now, you have to pick up basically cards on the ground in order to hopefully get a good anti-vehicle weapon. I'm just not 100% sold on that. I think that might still be a little unbalanced. There also seems to be a lot of explosive spam. A lot of explosive spam. Out in the open, indoor or whatever, it's not so bad, but anytime you get within doors, it gets to be real rough. I'm not going to call and say it's broken yet, but it's something I am watching. Those are my two ongoing concerns with the game. And that basically covers it. I definitely like Battlefront. I like it more than Vermintide, a video I did before, and I still do think it's a rather average shooter, though. I don't see myself playing it a huge amount, but I will put in 3 or 4 hours, probably one night a week, for the next month or so, and then I'll come back whenever they release any DLC. It's not going to be a hardcore shooter for me or anything like that, but I think it's fun enough for what it is, and I think for what they were aiming for, a very easily accessible shooter that a lot of people will be able to play, I think they nailed that target spot on, and they got exactly what they wanted. So, I'd love to hear your thoughts down below. Am I being overly critical on it? Did I miss something in general? What are your thoughts on Battlefront? Let me know what you think. If you liked this video, I'd ask for a thumbs up. Until next time, this has been Paller. Thanks for watching.